Well, Mike, thanks for coming in, bro. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
It's good that you're local. It's very convenient for me.
Is,
When
right.
I approached you, I thought, it's going to be the off chance. Maybe I might be able to catch him on halfway through a break in a meeting or something to get you in. But, mate, you're here and I'm stoked. I'm pumped.
No, happy to be here.
So, for the listeners, give me a bit of see, this is what would you call it? It's not an occupation. Is it an occupation or is it a vocation or a whatever you want to call it?
I think we have flexibility these days.
Okay,
right?
good. I'll call it occupation. Let's call it occupation. Is man coach.
Yeah.
Now, give me qualify that.
Sure.
How that works, because it's very intriguing for me. I thought, when I first heard it, I thought, wow, that's something cool, that's crazy. And then obviously heard you talk about it. But let us know.
Yeah, what does he do, right? What does that guy do? So look, how I can briefly put it is I help men make this shit make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, I personally, I'm super curious, right?
Yeah.
And I love figuring things out, including myself and others. And I've always kind of worked with men. And so where that kind of comes to now is I help men who, have maybe been cruising a bit, floating and just kind of ticking along.
Yep.
But they're starting to question a little bit, perhaps where they're at, what's going on for them. Maybe there's something more out there. They don't quite know how to scratch that itch or what the next step is. And what I do is I help those men turn, face and look at their shit and overcome it so they can actually grow out the other side and start getting what they want in their relationships and their careers and in their lives without the guilt, without the hang-ups, all the shit that we tend to kind of drag around.
Yeah, and that's everyone has baggage, and
we all got shit.
All of us.
Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes bigger than more, bigger than some, but that's you basically try and unload them or unload that shit. Make sure it's help them navigate through it and
understand it. First and foremost, because as you said, we've all got shits, some bigger than others, and but what's important is it's all relative. Yeah. Right. So my shit is fucking totally different to some other dudes, but if I sit and look at his and go, oh well, I should feel okay because his stuff's bad, I totally invalidate my own experience and my own shit. I just got to focus on me. And so if I can understand that, right, what that's about, how that plays out in my life, how it's not serving me, how I can start to shift that stuff, all of a sudden I can, move through it and start to kind of make sense of, I kind of talk about a lot of guys know where they want to go on some level, right? I want this stuff here. A lot of guys don't. And that's because we've got these chains around our ankles holding us down. And, until we look down and figure out where'd they come from and how did I break loose of those, I can't really, move forward or move ahead to where I want to go or even figure out what that is.
Do you find with guys it's like a straw that breaks the camel's back in the sense that I find whenever I get in a rut or because I certainly do it, it's happened a lot more than a lot more recently, but it's it's just a little bit often, and then before you know it feels like this insurmountable object that you can't do much about because it's slowly made its way there. And I guess as men you probably can't accept the fact that it might be slow to get it back down. You want it like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much at play here, right? There always is. For a lot of guys, we generally in this part of the world and a lot of the Western world, we learn pretty early on that we should be able to do everything ourselves. Asking for help is not something to do. That's a sign of weakness. And so those stories and those messages play out, and we take them on and we wear them, and they become thick coats. It's that's my story now. And so then when there's one little thing, it's whatever. She'll be right. We kind of learn that. Brush things off and don't show things are affecting you. I'm good, right? And enough of those straws, it gets to a point. But what often happens at that point is I should know how to navigate or sort the shit out myself. I was like, well, no. If you knew that, you would have done it by now, right? So we just get into the spin. It just kind of doesn't take us anywhere. So for a lot of guys, the final straw is that potentially rock bottom type thing where it's fuck, things are bad now. What do I do? And, on one side of the equation, we have some horrific stats around things like suicide and stuff like that, which for men, a big part of that is how much we're just suffering in silence. We just keep all of our shit in here. And for the most part, we think that all these dudes seem to have their shit together. Fuck, it's just me here. And again, it perpetuates. And so more so, I keep it to myself. I swallow it down. I'm good. How you go? I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, all good. And it just gets harder and harder, right? Until and most of that is centered around well, shit. If I say I'm not okay, or if I, say, mate, I'm not doing very well or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be seen as, fuck.
Like soft cock.
You aren't, exactly. You're a soft cock, you're a pussy, you're not man enough or whatever, right? These things come out. And so it's just, all of that shit is in our heads, right? All of that stuff I just went through is playing out in our heads. And most of it is total bullshit, but we make it true by looking for things to prove it, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. It's crazy to think like that because you don't think like... You've almost got to get to got to trick your brain, and that seems counterintuitive because you think, well, how am I going to trick my brain? It's almost like tickling yourself. You can't do it. Can you tickle yourself? You can't make yourself laugh. So it's weird. So you almost got to trick your body or trick your brain into.
Yeah, I think, and but more so, it's like because as men, or like I talk a little bit about like the masculine and feminine, and so in essence, without going into too deeply, we all have those sides to us. What I see is that a lot of men. We've been shamed for the feminine side of us, i.e. the creative, emotional type side. We learn from a young age that that's not to be a man, right? And so we shun it, and so we lose a relationship with that side of ourselves. And so understanding and processing emotions and stuff is like what? It's a different language, and so we get like really just into hyper masculine mode, and that plays out in many, many ways. One of those is like detail and focus, and like analytical stuff. But often we don't even do that very well. Yeah. And so, when it comes to something like this, it's like, actually, this is when you can be analytical,
Yep.
And so the tickling yourself is challenging those stories. Okay, hold on. Do I know this to be true? Show me the evidence. Like, fucking detail that stuff out. And all of a sudden, you can be analytical and you can go, oh, none of that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a huge thing. Like people seem to get themselves into like an insurmountable hill or an insurmountable emotional state that they can't get through, and then you're saying like that's bullshit. So you should be able to open up each side. So the end goal is to be able to open up each side of your personality or each side of what you have inside you, and make that work, or or counteract.
I think one, it's very normal to have shit that you can't handle and navigate and understand, right? Two, we're not designed to know all of that stuff ourselves. Because if we were born as all-knowing beings, right, this would be a very different cosmos type thing that we exist in, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I think we've lost a lot, to tangent a bit, in society is, like it takes a village, that kind of thing, to raise a child. And so we actually, for most of human evolution, have grown up in community, right? And we've lost a big part of that a lot. It's like a tiny family unit. Potentially both parents are out a lot. It's the school system, who we're getting, who are our mentors and role models and so on. And so we lose that connection as men to being supported by other men, being held accountable to things and challenged and being supported. Like actually, a mate or a brother or someone you consider to be a brother coming up and putting his hand on your shoulder and say like, how you doing, bro? I can see the world is on your shoulders right now.
Yeah.
Can I support you in any way? Do you need to unload a bit? Like that's normal. And man, I tell you what, when you do it, it's fucking powerful. Helps. It just makes things easier. So understanding that stuff is normal is, I think, a very, very important point. And then the other thing is, cool, well, if I don't think I have the capabilities to understand or navigate, where do I turn? Right? Like we all have a ceiling on certain things all the time. If I want to play above the ceiling and I don't have the resources or the capabilities, then I need some other form of doing that, and that might just be talking to someone, right? So I think we've all got shit, and it's your responsibility to explore it. Yeah.
And try and get rid of it.
Not necessarily try and get rid of it, but develop a different relationship with it, right? So,
well, I understand it more, or understand why it's there or where it came from.
Both, all of the above. Yeah. So if I think about, okay, so I'm going to show you, and maybe if the camera can see. Okay, so you can see that I got a big ass scar right there on my leg.
Yes, I know it's facing the wrong person.
Cool. So that's a bit my story. I'm a Kiwi and I used to play rugby back in the day. And one cold winter's day down in Dunedin, Port Chalmers, a little isolated point on the point.
Yep.
Sitting back in the pocket, it was the first 5, and right on our line. Get the ball, clear for touch. As that leg comes back down on the ground, boom, weight transfers. Guy tackles me.
Snap.
Leg snaps in half. Bone out the leg, out the sock. Shit's at a right angle, right? And
makes you feel crook thinking about that,
bro. And you know what happened after that was, you know, like a horrific day, all that kind of stuff, hospital, surgery, you know, a week in hospital, a couple of months on my back, you know, and then these stories, you know, like, oh, I've lost a yard of pace. You know, I'm not as powerful off that leg anymore. Yeah. You know, those guys that are my competitors, you know, for the rep sides, they've had another year ahead of me, you know, it's 18, 19, significant age, all these stories, right? And what that added to was me being a bit of a safe and kind of conservative kid. And so all of a sudden they kind of add to that, right? Now, what that really led to in the end was me creating some stories so I didn't have to really push myself, right? And now that I've looked at, you know, this is an example, but lots of things with hindsight and retrospect in 2020 and, you know, perspective from other people who can see what I can't see and all that kind of stuff, I can see that, okay, so let's say I was on a track to being a professional rugby player and then certain things happened and that didn't happen, right? Well, I know right now that if I didn't break my leg that day, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. Yeah. I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing. I wouldn't be running events for men. I wouldn't be supporting and helping and you know, working with men and facilitating them and changing their lives and all this kind of stuff. So the point in that story being that scar will never leave, but my relationship to the story that created it can change.
Yeah, right. Okay.
With me?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's cool.
Because I could live in regret about that day.
Yeah.
And go, fuck, you see, you know what, man, and I never made it, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Or I can be like, actually, that was a very significant moment in changing my trajectory to doing all the things I do right now, like a really significant one. And so again, the scar fades, but it never leaves. Yeah. It's my relationship to the story, the creation, et cetera, that changes. And so to your point earlier, you know, change that, get rid of it, move past it. It's like, no, it's understand it differently and change the relationship or change the story around it.
Because you would obviously, in your line of work, and I know a few people, but have had horrific upbringings. You know, like like you wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
I've heard some stories.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wouldn't want to. Yeah. That must be a real imperative part of dealing with that, is saying, hey, this has happened. We can't block it out because is that the way you navigate it, or the best way to navigate it?
Yeah. So I mean, like, to break it down a little bit. So we're a lot of guys. You know, like, my background was as a personal trainer, right? And so for a long time I was working with men in a physical sense, in a you know, just by nature, I'm like, I got to dig to the root of the problem here. Like, okay, you want to do some physical change, but there's something beyond that, right? And so where a lot of guys are operating is, I see these results in my life, don't like that, don't want that, want to change the result, right? Well, just wanting to change the result doesn't do shit. Yeah. Right. So then we have to look at, like, the behaviors. So what are the behaviors that get me there? You know, or if it's around my body, I got to go to the gym, I got to eat the food and da. But that's also not enough, because when it comes to that example, everyone knows what they need to do, right, to get in shape. They don't do it. So we have to figure out why we don't do it. So it's the beliefs and the stories that we have, you know, the stories that I have around my leg and so on. They're the things that lead to my behaviors, right? Yep. So why don't I go to the gym? Why don't I, you know, eat the food that I need to do? The stories I have, maybe I don't feel like I deserve to be, you know, fit and healthy. Those are the stories that we have to get to, because those are the things that change the behaviors. With me? Yeah,
very much so.
So the beliefs and the stories that I hold around myself and the world around me and the experiences that I've been through, that's where we have to go. Yeah. Right? Because there's an event and there's a story that I make up about it. So, you know, there's three of us in this room right now. If we went out onto the street and we all saw two cars hit each other, right? And then two people get out and have an interaction. Yep. We would all go into our lives and we would tell some different form of that story. Yeah. Right? We all tell a different story. And so when we look at trauma or whatever it is, you know, we look at that as, that's an activating event. So it's an event, right? And then there's the beliefs and the stories that I create around it. Yep. So that's the kind of shit that we have to get down to. Yeah. Right? So I could say, you know, the green car, he was an asshole, and the red car was in the right. And then I learned some more information and I reframe it, right? But I just created that first story. And then if I learn some information, it's like, well, maybe I can reframe that story. You know, there's something else going on here. So when it comes to big events, even though they might have been shithouse and horrible, objectively, we can still look at those things and go, now where have I been responsible for perpetuating a story that isn't serving me? Yeah, okay. Right? Yeah. And how can I reframe that story? Right, so let's say it's a horrible, you know, event, abuse or something. One, You're not to blame for certain things that have happened to you.
Yeah.
But you're responsible for how you deal with it and the story you tell yourself around it, right? And even though certainly more objectively shitty things can happen, I still have the power to go in and change the story around it. Because here's the thing. If something fucking horrible happened to me 15 years ago, it was 15 years ago. Yeah. It's not right now. What's now is the story.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So it's that needs to change. Because if that is the thing that keeps dictating what my life is like, this is the thing that needs to change.
You'll always be a slave to that story.
Can't go back and change that.
Yeah.
I can change the story. Right? I can't get rid of the scar.
Yeah.
I can change my relationship to the scar.
I think of lots of people in my life and things like that obviously holding on to like a story, or just people I know.
Yeah. And we all are.
Big time.
All of them.
Yeah.
Huge ones, little ones, insignificant ones. Yeah, absolutely.
And a little one becomes like, a little story might become that stone in the shoe. Like, I love that stone in the shoe analogy, where it's like, instead of that, you take painkillers. A runner has a stone in the shoe, takes painkillers to get the pain away, keeps fixing it, instead of just stopping, emptying the stone out.
Yeah.
Putting a shoe back on and continuing on.
Addressing
the stone.
But that's what we do, you know, and we all do it. But as men, I think we have certain ways of avoiding our shit, right? You know, of taking the painkillers and so on. And it's many different things. I feel like
you're talking directly at me at the moment.
Some are more socially acceptable, perhaps, you know, because it obviously takes on things like booze and drugs and porn and those kinds of things. But it also takes on exercise and work and, you know, relationships with some people. You know, it's like, you're running from relationship to relationship, dude. Sit the fuck down and feel what you need to feel. You're running from something. Yeah. You know, and so most of us deep down, we know that stuff. Yeah. Right. And the problem is we build it up to be a thing that's really going to hurt us. And again, this is where I think we can be a little bit more analytical about it. Like, sometimes we've got to feel the feels, right? Yeah. And sometimes you can look at that worst case scenario thing, like fuck, what if? Most of the time when we're doing that, we're not actually doing it. It's just like this grey cloud that follows us around. Whereas if I go, hold on, let me detail this. Like, what is the worst thing that could happen right now? Yeah. You know? And actually detail it. Turn and face the thing that you're afraid of, and you'll start to take the power away from it a little bit. Yeah. You know? And in my coaching program, like, we have a term I call villains, right? I'm a little bit of a Batman geek, so I bring in some Batman stuff here and there. And so, like, the villains kind of come in, and basically it's like we all kind of have some major fear, you know, fear of not being good enough or things like this. I give them a little villain name. It becomes easier to identify. Yep. But the point there being, if you think about a scary clown in the dark, it's kind of freaky. Turn the light on, it's just some fucking clown. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you have to shine the light on it first. Yep. Because if you keep turning from it, it keeps holding power over you, right? And so if you detail those things, it becomes easy to see what you're dealing with. But the other thing is, if you're going to masturbate in worst case scenario, you have to give yourself best case scenario too. And all of a sudden you start to weight the equation in the other direction. Yeah. What's the best thing that happens if I, you know, talk to my missus about this thing, or whatever it is, you know? Oh, maybe shit. Okay. And of course, logically, most of us know the worst case scenario very rarely happens. Yeah. And when you start to play it out and practice it, the best case scenario is actually much more likely. Yeah. 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 Because it's like walking around holding umbrella, waiting for it to rain. Yeah. You just think this is always going to happen. It's never going to work. It's never going to. Yeah. But again, that's all stories, right? Yeah. So it's like, cool. So where do these stories come from? Do I know this to be true? Like, you challenge that stuff. But again, it's hard if you're a dude who there's many dudes that I speak to who resonates with being very hard on themselves. Like, it's a form of self-flagellation. Like, stop. Why? It's not working. Yeah. Right? And if you be harder on yourself, it's not going to take you anywhere different. So we have to challenge that, right? Do I know this to be true? Where does this story come from, right? And when you start to question that stuff, you start to get answers, or at least avenues towards where answers may be. But let me reinforce the point from before: you don't have to have all those answers. Yeah. Right. Do you find if you're speaking to a tradie who's an apprentice, you know, and some dude who's been in the game for 20 years comes up and gives him something on his level, let's say, and he's like, I'm an apprentice. I don't know how to do that thing. Of course you don't know how to do it. Yeah. You're a fucking newbie. Right? But when it comes to ourselves, we expect that. Like, hey, bro, get married and be a master at relationships. Yeah. Do you know how to do that? Well, all I have as a guideline is my parents, and who knows what their relationship is like. So we don't learn those things, but when we look at them, we expect ourselves to be masters at it. And that expectation cycle of like, well, I expect up here super high expectations and I can't meet them. And then I get into the self-beat up cycle of, but I should be capable of that right there. but I'm not, and it just spins and spins and spins.
So do you find like that's crazy to think like that, but and also, but when you qualify it,
mm-hmm.
like I might have these things, and like sometimes, like I've got kids, and I say to mates who have the kids, and I think, well, it's the hardest job you'll ever do that you'll never get a manual for.
Mm-hmm.
You just expect that here's a baby,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, my brother's just had a baby. Same thing. It's like, we'll just sort it out.
Raise a human.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's the most important job you'll ever have. Well, can I get any guidelines? Yeah, sure. There's things you can look up. You know, we're far more better off nowadays than we used
mm-hmm.
to be.
Yeah.
And it's probably the same with marriage. It's probably the same with exactly. Watch YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's the same with marriage and relationships. You've just got to navigate your way through it. And also, you can't have a manual because each and every different person is different.
It is.
So it's almost like
but
this
the thing
you
at the
just can't
center
grab.
of that is us as an individual.
Yeah.
Right? So like, good luck being a dad when you haven't figured your own shit out yet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say like you should be able to figure all your shit out. No, of course not. But most of us are running through life with this set of ideals and beliefs and principles and values that we've kind of borrowed, right? From our family and our parents and, you know, the greater community around us and society. And so then we go step into being a dad, or then we go step into relationships with all this other shit dictating how we show up. Right, so my, I suppose, baseline, let's call it, guide for dudes entering into those kind of situations or anywhere else, a business, whatever, is figure yourself out, right? Because we all often get into, as an example, a relationship, and we look at the things externally, right? Well, in a relationship, there's your shit, there's their shit, and then there's both of your shit. Figure out your shit.
Yeah,
because that starts to dictate everything else over the other side of the table, right? So to be clear on the expectations, that doesn't mean you need to be the perfect individual before you become a father. Of course not. But what it means is now all of a sudden there's another individual that's a work in progress. Yeah. But we don't get to 18 and become an adult and then stop developing. Yeah. But I think that's what we've kind of, it's a weird little like subtle lie that we've bought into. And it's also, and then you become a baby boomer age. You know, it's like the human experience is change, right? And so as adults, it's just not as obvious from the ages of 25 to 45, let's say, but it's happening just as much. And just you turn a day older from 18, and all of a sudden you're meant to be an adult. Yeah. Or like I've seen parents, I know of parents that have gone, oh, they turn 18, you're on your own. Well, I can't influence their decisions. So fuck that, of course you can. You just turn a day, it's just 24 hours older than you was when you should have been listening. And you are influencing their decisions. Yeah, and you should be. Yeah, exactly. You are anyway because we're watching. Yeah, right? There you go, we're watching, and maybe you might have to just do it a little bit more indirectly. Yeah. You know, like you might have to just change your navigation towards doing it or your approach to it. Mm-hmm. That's how you can change decisions or lead by example. Yeah, exactly. That's the hardest. So either way, there's leadership happening. Yeah. Some of it's effective, some of it isn't. Have you got kids? No. Man. No. Wait till you they start mirroring what you do. Yeah, but this is the thing. And so this is what I'll speak to a lot of guys who you know, like the most general age I suppose that I work with dudes maybe 30 to 45, right? And so, you know, there tends to be a lot of dudes who are dads in there. And that's often one of the things that sparks a little bit of a like, oh shit, you know, there's some different stuff going on here. Like I feel like I need to show up a bit more effectively, differently. Fuck, I've got kids now. Yeah, I thought I was just a kid. So there's this big thing that we lack these days, which is actually a rite of passage, a transition into being a man. Yep. Right? We might look like men, but most dudes that I speak to, I'll say, when did you become a man? And they're like, I don't think I have yet. It's like, dude, you're fucking 48. I personally struggled up until probably years ago at referring to myself as a man. Mm-hmm. Like I would never say to you, if we were talking, I would never say, oh, men like us. I would say people like us. It was I've just only really sort of thought about that. Yeah. It's very strange. I never. Why do you think that analyse me, please. Why do you think that is? I don't know. I don't know. And I had kids. Yeah. But I never thought, I sort of had like a, not embarrassing, that's probably the wrong word, but like I guess probably in my mind I thought, well, what if they don't think I am a man? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that probably started when I was younger. Maybe it started when I was 18 and it just never grew out of it. Mm-hmm. I never referred to myself as that. Even though I clearly was. Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? So we are by chronological age a lot of the time, but not by emotional age, let's call it. And then, you know, perhaps there's a responsibility, a super obvious one, like, hey, this is a human, you're in charge of that person's life, they are dependent on you. And so that can be a spark for a lot of guys to go, oh shit, right? So hopefully, and they want to do it for their kids. And I think that's admirable, but also, bro, do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Because what that person, be it a boy or a girl, is watching is what a man is.
Yeah.
Right? You are their number one model for what a man is.
Yeah.
Right? And so you get to do it for them, but you also get to do it for yourself. Because if you legit don't think you've like properly transitioned into manhood, right? Because what dictates that for a lot of guys? First car you get, first time you get laid, maybe buy a house. Like, what are the?
Yeah, what's the?
They're nothing
what's the
real.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So for every guy, there might be something, or there isn't. Like, fuck, I don't think there is yet. So that kind of maturing process, like, we need that shit, right? Because if you are actually gonna have a family and provide for them, we have developed a general belief system that men are measured on their ability to provide, protect, and procreate. Right, and so we chase those things. And the provide side of it simply comes down to money, finances, a lot of the time, right? But I'm here to tell you, fellas, you provide more than just finances.
Yeah.
Right? If you're working your ass off all the time to provide for your family, but you're not around, there's a big fucking thing you're not providing, which is love, fatherhood, you know, an example of what it is to be around the house and whatever, right? So we have to like dig in to challenge those things. Because I see these things just become wider and wider gaps in an individual's life and their marriage, you know, and so on. So, rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit. We can stop because I know that, like I grapple with it a little bit. Like you talk about providing. I try, like I work. Same, pretty much identically what you said. But then my kids, specifically my youngest daughter, don't care about that. She couldn't care less if we lived in a one-bedroom apartment. She'd think it was probably pretty cool because we all slept together. You know, she'd think that was like a slumber party every night, not in a nice, beautiful home. But I'm like, well, I'm providing you this nice, beautiful home, but that's not actually what she wants. She'd far rather me just be there. That's just be there, and that really, I find that really tough because you can't. You know,
of course, I mean,
that.
there's a far end of that spectrum where the kids will be like, let's all just, you know, sleep in a box. It's like, obviously we can't do that, right? But the thing is, you get to challenge that and you get to question it because that's exactly right. And it's often that kind of thing where, you know, fundamentally what we have to look at is like, what is driving your behaviors, right? And that's those beliefs and so on that we said before. And so for a lot of guys, that kind of providing thing might come down to, you know, I want to provide for my kids what I didn't have or something, right? And big again, what that generally comes down to is opportunity / money. It still comes back to that central thing. But if you're not around because you're working your ass off all the time to provide that opportunity for them, what are they missing out on? Probably your attention and love and presence, and probably an example. What they're getting is an example of a man who prioritizes going out and working than being with his kids. Yeah. Like, how does that sit?
Not well.
Right, and again, so as men, what happens is we're very black and white with things. So I do a lot of work with guys who like are kind of the quintessential nice guy, right? They fall into that category, and you know, there's lots to that, and essentially it's our insecurities playing out and how we manipulate people actually. And the nice guy generally thinks, but if I'm not nice, I have to be an asshole, right? That's one end of the spectrum to the other. It's like, no. That's the complete opposite, right? If you say to me, hey, mate, could you come back and record the podcast tomorrow? And I've got important shit on, but I'm worried about you not liking me. And so I say yes. Right? That's me being a nice guy, not respecting my own boundaries. The alternative is not to say, go fuck yourself. Right? That's being an asshole. I can say, no, I can't.
Sorry, man.
Right, but that's where we get stuck in that black or white kind of all or nothing thinking. And so when we start to talk about things like that, providing, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Nothing? It's like, no, that's the other end of the spectrum. Like, allow yourself some wriggle room in the middle there. Right? But that means thinking. You got to think about that stuff.
It's like that nice guys finish last. I always think like that sometimes. Not that I want to be a nice person, but I'm like, no, hang on a minute. You have to be ruthless. There are times in your life you have to be ruthless. If you're not going to be, you'll just be someone's doormat. And that, unfortunately, that's what. But again, end up being like that.
So what will often happen is, you know, the nice guy, to explore that for a bit, is generally so insecure that he needs people to reassure him that he's okay. I need people to like me, right? And so I will bend and please and be the chameleon and just and peacekeeper and sweep things under the rug and disrespecting their own boundaries. in fact, not having any boundaries.
Yeah.
And so often what happens is actually flying to the other end of the spectrum because it gets so much. Final straw, camel's back, boomfa. Would you go, fuck, like whatever, right? It's just an extreme reaction based on the context.
Yep.
And you got to be ruthless. Sometimes that comes out as something, you know, more to the arsehole, let's say, end of the spectrum, right? Whereas, okay, here's one for you. So for a dude in that space, he is not respecting himself, right? Whilst trying to manipulate people's opinions of him, right? So when I'm being a nice guy, I'm trying to get you to like me. This is who I am. Like me, like me, like me. So I'm subtly trying to manipulate you into liking me.
Yep.
That's not nice when you think about it, right? That's not nice at all. And what we also do, so nice guys, because I'm a recovering nice guy over here, is essentially we put in place covert contracts. So a covert contract is, you know, like I'll do all these things and I'll say yes and I'll say yes and I'll say yes, and I expect something in return. Favors the same, or that you like me. Right? I'll do this, you like me. That's the contract. But it's covert, i.e. it's one-sided over here. That's not nice.
It's not pre-conceived. Right? It's not it's not a pre-signed contract where
exactly. But either way,
it took me a while to get that out.
But either way, you know, there's still being nice. Like, of course you can be nice, and some of those guys are a lot genuinely, but a lot of it is a bit of a ledger, right? And that's not nice. But ultimately, what I'm doing is I'm abandoning myself in order for you to like me. To try and fit in and mold, and then feel okay about myself. So the moment I abandon myself, and guys do it in relationships all the time, you know, and then relationship ends and it's like I got no friends because they were our friends. You know, like these are ways we do this, right? I'm not respecting myself. The moment I continually show up in the world like that, try and bend and fix, yes, and I'll say yes to everything, and I come last, and I'm not, like, if I can't communicate and withhold boundaries, I've got no respect for myself. Now, it's pretty hard to respect someone who doesn't respect themselves.
Yes.
Right? So you see how that doesn't work? I'm wanting people to respect me because respect is very, very big for men.
I was about to say, is that like the number one carrot?
It is.
For men,
respect is a very big thing for men. So it's like acknowledgement and feeling important. Right? And you know, so these things take little different, you know, appearances. Being appreciated, feeling important, and acknowledged, and kind of respect is a bit of a through line through that. Let's say. And so, like, if and it's not obvious to everyone, of course, because a lot of us are walking around with our own blinkers on, right? I'm not noticing your shit because I'm so wrapped up in mine. But there you are over there, thinking that I'm thinking about your shit, and all you're doing is thinking about your shit. Right? Like when we start to really dive into that, you look at it and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Right, but when
cross-eyed,
but when you see it, right, so I can, you know, that's what I do, and it's a skill and a gift that I have. I can see when a dude, you know, can't set boundaries and won't respect himself. It's hard to respect that dude. Right, he's telling me that he doesn't trust himself. So what evidence is there for me to trust him?
Do you look at that like in people with power? Like you look at people with power and you think, I just can't respect that person because they clearly don't respect themselves because they look unhealthy, they act unhealthy, they fly off the handle, they're probably mentally unhealthy because obviously, like, that's something I've sort of not figured out but sort of read about is there's a big difference between mental health and mental illness and mental health. You know, because you can be unhealthy,
of course,
but you can just mentally ill is just a whole nother spectrum where that's just like that's a chemical reaction or that's something you're born with or something you've developed.
So let's change the word mental for physical, and then it's real easy to understand.
Oh, exactly. Right.
So physical health is a spectrum. Physical illness is something different. That's where it goes and gets diagnosed and there's something going on, right? And so, yes, I think we've largely confused mental illness and mental health, which when you obviously flip it out like that, it's like, whoops, right? So, mental health has been the thing that we have stigmatized, and we're working very hard at the moment in society to destigmatize that, especially amongst men, and talk to your mates and ask if you're okay and all that kind of stuff. But still, where I am challenged by a lot of that and the purely awareness-based mental health stuff is that, one, talking about stuff isn't enough. You need to do shit, right? And two, things like suicide statistics, you know, in Australia, every day, 8 people take their own lives, 6 of them are men, right? Every 2 days a tradie, right? These things are scary and you hear them and they do a job, right? And so then we talk about ask your mates if he's okay and all these things, but most guys are probably not going to resonate with I'm close to suicide, right? So, if that's not me, switch off.
Yeah.
So what we have to actually be talking about is mental health, like actual mental health. And so perhaps an easier word for us to catch on to is like mental fitness or mental strength.
Yeah,
right?
It almost seems like there needs to be another
so all of a sudden if you start to think about that, it's like, well, we all have that and I could work on that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, how physically healthy are you right now? I have my health, but it could be healthier.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, I think, for a lot of guys, when we have all these messages around, don't be weak, if we start to look at it more like that, all of a sudden the messages that need to be heard and shared and the skills, they fit in there. Right? If we stay in a place that is only dealing with crisis point mental health / illness, suicide, close to suicide stuff, then we stay in a process of crisis relief.
Yep.
Right? We have to come to a preventative place where we're building mental strength and fitness and health for men, which means not keeping all your shit to yourself, being able to communicate effectively in your relationship, not just sweep things under the rug because you know what? It's not worth it. Right? It's not worth it. A bunch of those.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of straws on the camel's back,
Yeah.
right? So I think, I don't even know how we got into that, but the tangent being, right,
Doesn't
like
matter.
mental health is a spectrum of something that you have, right? And, I suppose my want for a lot of men is to work on your mental fitness and strength, right? And the key thing for me, and that is building your emotional literacy. Because the moment we, as boys, learn, harden up, don't cry, don't be a pussy, suck it up, we start to switch off processing an emotion. And so then we kind of limit ourselves as teenagers and adults to maybe 2 emotions, happiness and anger. And even anger we shame a lot because we do it ineffectively.
Yeah.
And so everything that gets pushed down beneath the surface for a lot of men comes out as anger. And it's not, I kind of, as I was saying before, around, the nice guy, like bottles it up, and then it comes out inappropriately. It's not, you're not angry at that thing. Actually, you're angry at heaps of things over time that you never fucking dealt with.
Yeah.
Right? So anger we do pretty poorly. Anger's a normal emotion, right? But we label it and we demonize it and stuff as well. But either way, it's just that we don't have, it's a new language that we haven't really learned.
Yeah.
So we need to increase our vocabulary of that so that we can manage and navigate versus try and control. Because often men see emotions as need to control them or being controlled by them. And again, that's that black or white thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, if I don't control them, they'll control me. It's like, that's for some people because they're basically a 1-year-old in terms of their emotional development.
Yeah.
Right? And their literacy. There's like having an emotional experience, processing it, and moving through it. And then seeing the lesson that it's giving you. Right? Like, let's say, like for anger is a good example for me. I don't get angry very much.
Yeah.
Because I have a pretty good take on things and not that many things get my fucks in that degree. So the things that do cause anger in me most of the time, I really care about.
Yeah.
That's why I have such a strong response. It's probably not appropriate for me to express the anger in that moment. That's when I can be a good, detailed, analytical man and decompartmentalize it, but I have to revisit it. Because anger is a very physical emotion, so we need to express it in some way that's healthy and safe. Like, legit, for me, the decorative pillows that tend to happen in most heterosexual relationships, they sit somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, they
now have the core about those. I got those all through my
exactly.
house.
They now have a very practical use in my house.
Yeah.
When I need to release some anger, I go punch the shit out of those things.
Yeah.
And I get that physical release out. And then I can sit with it afterwards and feel whatever's coming up for me. And usually there's probably going to be some little message, right? The thing that I'm trying to analytically think of prior to that, right? So guys will get an emotional response happening, and what we try and do is outthink it.
Yep.
Right? But you can't outthink a feeling. It's a feeling.
Yep.
It's not a thinking, right? So there's a message in there. And so let's say it's, my relationship is easily the place I have the most anger, because I give a shit about it.
Yeah.
Right? And if I don't process it, it might come out ineffectively. I might weaponize it, at my wife, let's say later, or somewhere else. Someone bumps onto me and I'm like, that's not it. It's not about that. This is something I'm holding on to. And then if I look at it, I might go, okay, so what caused that anger was I felt like she wasn't listening to me. And I felt disrespected. And so actually I didn't feel heard or important. Like, fucking, that's important information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's only a lesson I can get when I allow myself to do the process. And then I can communicate that with her. Hey, babe, like earlier, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Right? And that's like healthy communication between adults.
And you can see also how that will just keep perpetuating through your relationship, where you get angry and you don't voice it to her. So you get angry again. Mm-hmm. She keeps doing what she was doing, probably not really knowing that that's what she was doing incorrectly in your eyes, and then it goes down the line.
Exactly.
And then you would see that a lot, where it's just continually the same shit coming up time and time again. And when it's addressed, it's almost like that just goes.
Yeah.
Because it's understood.
Yeah, and so I think, the challenge for a lot of us is we just don't dig deep enough.
Yeah.
Right? So, understanding why we do what we do and all the stuff I've kind of been talking about earlier, like, why do I do that? Because, okay, for example, driving down here, in a rush, someone cuts me off, then they make the light, I hit a red light.
Yep.
Right? And I get wild about it. Fucking stewing, it's still on me here, right? The surface would be that person cut me off and I didn't make the green light and I was late.
Yeah.
Right. But if I dig deeper, it might be that I was rushing around today. I wasn't organised. And I didn't prioritise my time well enough. And I didn't put enough respect into getting here to respect Jono's time.
Yeah.
And so the thing that really annoys me is not honouring my word and turning up here on time. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So digging deeper allows me to get to the real issue. And so when we don't dig deep enough, then we get stuck at the level of the problem.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you fight about the dishwasher, it's not the fucking dishwasher.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so when we can have that willingness to dig, I think first of all, that can maybe open the door to developing the ability to do it.
So do you get, when you first start out with, so how does it work? I know you do some like a seminar. Are you doing a seminar soon? Or?
So yeah, I'm part of we're running a national symposium on men's health in Sydney across a few days. Yep. Yeah, next month.
So that where you'll speak?
Yeah, so that's all sorts of things,
similar
mate.
to this, or like
so
question time?
This is Sydney Town Hall, big truckload of people and lots of leaders and experts and stuff. So we've got panels and speakers and kind of different conversations and an opportunity for leaders who are working with me and to come into the space. And we want to have some conversations around, to tangent a bit. I know you want to get onto your question.
No.
All this stuff is happening for men, and there is all this awareness-based stuff and all these kind of things. But like, why are all the stats around suicide and violence and addiction, and why are all they getting worse? What's going on? What are we doing as leaders or not doing? Right? And bring men into the space so we can actually educate, empower, and give tools to do stuff. So it's kind of a mixture of lots of things.
Yep. So back to what I was saying. That's cool. I like it. So you appear on things like that. Yep. But then I guess, what am I trying to say? Are you like if you're a counsellor, just a counsellor, you'd say, right, you book an appointment with Mike. You get from 10 till 12. Yep. And you can come in and you're going to lie on the couch and you're going to spill all your crap. Just unload. How does your industry work? Do you do it in like group chats? Do you have coffees with a couple of 3 guys, or do you do one-on-ones, or how does that all work? Yeah,
so I mean, I started more. I kind of started more so in a one-on-one environment, but what I've learned over the years to be true to the point that I haven't seen it being disproven, is when men do stuff together, it's so much more powerful than the sum of its parts. Because here's a simple point. Okay, we spoke about it earlier, right? We've all got shit. We're all walking around, most of us looking at the other people going, they seem to have their shit together. And I don't, so I just need to keep up appearances that I don't. Right? No, we've all got shit. And the moment you can get past that and communicate and navigate it in company. And so the strongest thing because most dudes are terrified of being judged.
Yeah.
That's what's cockblocking us throughout most of our lives. Right? We just won't allow ourselves to be seen because we're terrified that then when they see me, they will think that I'm not enough or I'm not man enough or whatever. Yeah. Those are the big root fucking stories that we need to get to, by the way.
Yeah.
But therefore, we don't feel safe. Right? And so most guys won't have real conversations because they don't feel safe.
Safe from judgment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. Yeah, rejection, embarrassment, like whatever you want to dress it up as, it's something like that. When we feel safe, it's totally different. It's wildly different. Right? And so the moment I share something completely raw and real about myself, a couple of things happen. One, well, I already know because I've experienced it many times, right?
Yeah.
But the world won't end.
Yeah.
Right? You won't judge me. If you do judge me, like fucking hell.
Yeah.
So, like that's on you. That's your own shit.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have anything to do with me. Right? Because your opinions of me are yours. They're not mine. What you find most of the time is you'll have some level of like, fuck. Like, holy shit, that was some feeling of respect. Yeah. Like it's so common.
What surprised, like, I didn't realise, I thought you had your shit together.
Yeah, but also because I was ballsy enough to share that thing, right? Because that's what comes. Like, man, that took balls. Especially when you voice it like, did anyone think that was weak? It's like, no. What do you think? Courage, strength, all the time.
That's the overriding sort of response to those things.
Yeah. And again, like the context and the container is important in creating safety and so on. But safety simply comes down from like a bunch of men saying, I agree not to judge him or myself.
Yep.
Right? And then someone goes first and it's like, whew. But what comes through there is a level, consciously or unconsciously, of respect for that guy. Yeah. Respect's very important.
Big time.
Right? Yep. So the next thing is, fuck, he's just like me. Me too. Right? And so, you know, for any dudes who want to like explore some totally different like intellectual work, look up someone called Brené Brown, who does a lot of work around vulnerability and shame and courage. Yep. She's a phenomenal researcher. But
I think I've heard.
Yeah. So she got something on Netflix you can go and watch. But anyway, she's a phenomenal researcher around, like literally she researches.
Was it Brené?
Brené. B-R-E-N-E.
Like Brené but with a B.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check that out, yeah.
And so she researches shame.
Yeah.
Right, essentially. And, you know, she's got a lot of great work, but the gist of it being like we fear judgment where we are most vulnerable to shame. Right? So if I'm fearing that you're going to judge me about something, that's where I feel shame. Yep. So that's actually my own judgment of myself. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right? So the antidote to shame means we cannot have judgment.
Yep.
Right? So she says if you get shame and you put it in a petri dish, in order for it to grow, it needs silence, secrecy, and judgment. Right? You douse it with that, you keep it in the dark, right? You fear judgment and you judge yourself for it and it grows and grows and grows.
Yeah.
But of course, the things we feel shame around, we don't want to share because we're shaming ourselves for them.
Yeah.
And so it perpetuates. So the antidote to silence, secrecy, and shame, silence and secrecy would be bring it out of the dark and fucking talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? And the opposite of judgment, which is empathy, in a sense. Empathy and compassion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you share something and you know that you'll only get empathy and compassion from me, changes the game.
Yeah.
And two words that sum up empathy essentially is me too. And so when dudes come together and we actually can talk about stuff, again, it takes, you know, setting up the space and all that kind of stuff or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, oh, fuck, me too, bro. One, it's the opposite of judgment. Two, you feel seen and validated.
Yeah.
Right? So men...
You've shone a lot on it too, like you were talking about
absolutely,
before.
100%. Right? And so all of a sudden dissipates.
Yeah.
So... It was a reasonably long story. So then to cut to the answer of, so everything that I do for men fundamentally involves a group of some form.
Yep.
So I have an online group coaching program.
Yep.
It goes for 5 months. So we come in and we go through certain topics and modules and all this kind of stuff. And then I also do events called Beyond the Beers. And so Beyond the Beers is about conversations with men that break the stereotype.
Yep.
It's about taking a beer with mates to new depths and actually talking about the shit that matters. And so fundamentally Beyond the Beers was set up first of all as a show. Because I knew that when men see other men talk about their shit, or at least have conversations that are more meaningful and beneath the surface, they see, that wasn't that hard. I could do that too. Yeah. Like at a bare minimum. But generally what comes is, fuck, that was courageous, and all that stuff that we just spoke about. So then that morphed into events, and the whole idea with the event is we bring men into a room. Myself, I go first. If I'm going to talk to men about like, we're going to face our shit, fellas, and when you talk about it, it's not that hard, and you realize that this big weight comes off your shoulder, and like, oh, and then these dudes are like, fucking good work, man, like whatever, right? It becomes so much easier.
Yep.
And so have someone else tell a bit of a story, share their own, journey, whatever, some conversations, an interview, panel, whatever it is. But the gist being, men see that happen, and then there's a realization, which is, wasn't that hard? But the more I've done it, the more I've found it's not that hard. I could do that too. And it's actually, I'm fucking crying out for this in my life, but I don't know where or how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is one of the things that leads me to this funny little realization I've had recently. It's something like that at a Beyond the Beers event or any form, in my DMs on Instagram or whatever, where dudes will say things like, like I'm actually quite deep. Like I really like, do enjoy like deep conversations, or like I'm actually quite sensitive, like, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah.
It's called being a human. It's just that some of us are better in hiding it than others. Right?
Yeah.
And so when we allow ourselves to go there, it's just like, oh, this is what like having a real fucking relationship with a broken look like. Yeah. We can talk about fishing and sport and whatever, and we can also be real with each other. Because one of the things that most men are missing is a dude who can call them on their bullshit.
Yeah.
With love and compassion and honesty.
Yeah. Oh, hugely.
Right?
Yeah. Because you also look at it like, I think about like when you're at the pub, or say like we'll have groups and go down, like I've got a close group of mates, and our wives are all close together. Drastically different subject matter at each table. Like the shit we talk about is just, I mean, it's funny. But there's nothing groundbreaking in the sense that no one's going, hey, I've really been struggling with this. They go, oh shit, man, well I tried this and I tried that. But the girls' table, quite the opposite. They'll be talking about that. It's exactly what they're talking about. They're not talking about some stupid shit they did on the weekend or some arsehole they bumped into. Like I don't even know what our subjects are about. They're fun, they're entertaining. I have a great time, but there's no. It doesn't.
But you know what? That's the point.
Shallow.
They would remember theirs.
Yeah.
Whereas ours that we don't remember because,
yeah.
right? But also I want to be clear here. We're not shaming those conversations, like the banter and being kept honest.
It's the best part. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, that stuff's really important.
Yeah.
So I think a really important point for a lot of men, especially when we talk about mental health awareness and all this kind of stuff, is a lot of men don't have that.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of men don't have that at all. Really? Male friendships where they can just shoot the shit and, have the banter.
Just nothing for that. Are they isolated or are they just...
Absolutely. Yeah.
By choice?
Man, that's kind of potentially getting deep. So yes, because everything's a fucking choice. Yeah. But
I struggle with that when we first moved over here. I struggled a little bit with that.
Yep.
Like my wife's very social.
Yeah.
Like very social.
But what's your general working environment?
Well, I was plumbing for a company then, so you're sort of quite isolated in that sense as well, because you're in your own vehicle and you're driving to jobs on you. So it's almost and like then, and then that's it.
I mean, like after you move past that period.
Yeah, like social after work?
No, like that period of your life.
Oh, then I work for myself.
Yeah.
So then it's just me again.
Yeah, just you again.
And so I became very isolated because I didn't have any friends. And when I moved over here, she'd have good mates. She'd meet them at exercise stuff. She'd go, oh, come out and hang out with me, and this guy's husband's going to come. And some of the husbands I'd meet just did my head in because they would talk shit, or they just weren't my people. Like I didn't feel like they were genuine.
Just not your people.
And that was okay. That was okay. But and I didn't try after that. Like she'd just go out with her friends, and I'd just stay home. Like I can't be. Look, I'm not going to meet anyone.
And the
genuine.
thing is, so what's your social life / social circle like now?
Oh, great! Like we've got a great social circle, but it was in the same instance.
Have that ability. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Whereas a lot of men don't.
Oh, okay.
They're super introspective, so they might have your situation and then no way of changing that.
Yeah.
Right. And
mine was by choice because it wasn't that I didn't like hanging out with people. I didn't have mates. I still had mates, but I could be bothered with a certain type of people.
Yeah. But that's probably playing out for a lot of guys just in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Like he's into sports. Screw that stuff. Like he's into whatever, right? But a lot of guys don't have any form that they choose to put themselves into, right? Because I said it before kind of flippantly, everything is a choice, right? So a lot of guys don't have that, and a lot of guys have that, but they can't go beyond it, right? And when we can't go beyond the surface, your whole life is on the surface, right? And so if you want a deep and meaningful life, you have to fucking go beneath the depths, right? So a lot of guys, have nothing, no outlet, and they internalize, and they're the guys who, spend all night and all weekend in their houses online playing gaming and stuff because they have no connections, and that's fucking dangerous.
That's isolation, like a false reality in of itself, isn't it?
It is, but isolation is soon, like, very quickly being proven, like, around the research and stuff. The damage of isolation and poor quality relationships is incredibly detrimental to our physical health, right? Like, a lot of the research that is coming out about that now is, like, scary, right? And so so that's people who are isolated in a sense that they don't have people around them. There are many, many people who are lonely and isolated but have people all around them. Yeah. Right? Because they don't let them in. And so again, why don't they let them in? Well, a lot of that is, the fear of what they're going to think, and I can't be myself, and all that stuff is still playing out, right? So it still comes back to figuring our shit out and being willing to push past where we feel a bit of fear. Yeah. Right? Because, I hear from so many guys, and it's one of those stories. It's hard for guys over 30 or 35, pick your age, to make friends or something, right? And it's kind of like, no, it's not. If you choose to go and make friends, like, your people are everywhere, you just got to go find them. The reason we don't is we, maybe, of course, responsibilities and stuff like kids, and all of a sudden less time and stuff, but still your people are there somewhere, right? But why don't we do it? Well, it's kind of weird to go and try and make a new male friend, and we feel that maybe they might reject me or embarrassing, and the same story is coming up, right? So so I heard that a lot, and I was like, yeah, it is, and then I started to realize, I'm fucking 37, I make friends all over the place because I just go out and do it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And some people aren't my people, and that's okay. I was going to say, my filter just becomes a little bit more clogged. I'm like, well, I just don't really want that person in my life. But if you don't really understand you, right, and who you are and what you're about and what you like, then the people will reflect that. It all comes back to that, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. More self-evaluation, self-knowledge is key to every relationship. Yeah. Absolutely, including your business ones and everything, right? Yeah, absolutely. Like you were saying before, how you get the masculine men who they have the two emotions. Yeah, and also let's be clear, right? Just because I know how that could sound to the audience, so that doesn't necessarily mean big macho men, because that's often the incorrect assumption. Dudes who are in their masculine, so it's like analytical, detailed, focused, achieve, are all result orientated, right? So you have that person. Do they? And that's probably like growing up with a father who might have been really hard, or the exact same way. On the opposite spectrum, do you get guys that are like, not feminine's the wrong word, but they're super emotional. Yeah. So like, to be clear, when we say that, I'm not saying like man, woman, right? We're not genderizing it. We all have those, but they're very in their feminine, and or they don't have a relationship to their masculine. I was going to say, is it too? Yeah. Like they're in that too much, where they're actually just, because you get some. Generally, the guys with the weak handshakes, they sit there and you're like, come on, man, like that's the most important part of a hello. Yeah, so that might not be a guy who's very in his feminine. That might just be a dude who's like a scared little boy, and he can't, like locate his balls and be grounded in himself. Right, so there's nuance to it. Yeah, right? But absolutely, there's a spectrum. Right, I was going to say, it's so complicated. You can't just isolate one thing. It is, but and so if we think about masculine and feminine like a spectrum, right, where we all sit on there and we all have both. Yeah, and the idea, this is whoever you are, your gender, the idea is to figure out kind of where you sit and be able to integrate the two. Yeah, right, and so learning the traits and stuff, in my opinion, can help us just figure ourselves out a bit more. Yeah. Right. So here's an example. You work hard all day, right? Doing shit, action. It could be anything. Physical with your hands, on the screen, whatever, in an office. Doing, kicking ass, taking names, providing. And then you come home and you got a couple of little kids, right? And it's dinner and it's bathing and it's putting them to bed. If you do that in work mode, doesn't work that well, right? Yeah. It lacks compassion, right? Because it's the masculine is not compassion, right? The masculine is the hunter. Yeah. So note that I didn't say for dudes out there, because there's plenty of women who are doing the first part, right? So when you're in that mode all day, we need transition time to transition from doing mode, right?
Yeah.
And doing mode is like looking at life through the eye of a straw. Like you can only see what's at the end of that, and we can focus really well on that.
Yeah.
But you miss everything else. Whereas the feminine, the softening is leaning back and getting that broader perspective.
Yeah.
And that's like receiving and like letting the universe provide versus fucking going and providing, right?
Yeah.
So we need to have that little transition time of switching modes so that you can go and care for your child, hold them.
I get that sometimes. Like I'm like obviously tradesman. You're out there all day. You're making sure shit's sorted. You come, like you're saying, like hammer and tongs into it. Phone calls, this and that.
Fixing and solving.
Yeah. And making sure like where's the next bloody bread coming from?
Yeah.
Basically, out there hammer and tongs, and then you walk in the door, and then I'll be still sort of in that mode. But I've got daughters in that, and my house is.
Here you go.
Well, my house is a soft house.
Take the baby.
Like, I've got daughters and like everything's drawings and playing with puppies. That's my house. But then I'm coming in this like sort of from a masculine industry straight in there to that, and then some of them say, "Oh, you're in a shit of a mood." I'm like, I'm not. I'm just on. I have to be on at the moment. If you give me 10 minutes, I'll be back down to this level with you where I'm good at as well. I feel like I am.
Of course,
I can.
But we can't just switch effectively, right? And so. And I'm speaking specifically to that switch, right? Masculine to feminine. And so, this is where, of course, it takes in a relationship two people to understand it, right? Because if your partner, like if it's a woman and she says, here, I've had a shit of a day and this and this and this, right? And she wants to unload on you. When you're in that mode, well, why didn't you just do this? And you're just going to fix it, right?
Exactly.
Right? You got a hammer and everything looks like a nail. Whereas if you can have an understanding, so babe, I understand what goes on for you during your day, and when I come home, I want to be able to, care for you and your girls and so on and so on. I know that for me to get into that mode, I have to transition at home or on the way. This is what I need, and you got to run that experiment and figure out what it is. It might be like you get home and then you change your clothes and you head around the block, listen to some music, you come home and have a shower or something. You know what I mean? Like it could be anything, so that you can then show up effectively for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
not
it doesn't
trying to fix things
the
and the girls do something and they won't get into the bath and you fucking fly off the handle, whatever it is, right? And so, whereas if you don't have that conversation with her, and she's like, look at this selfish prick. She's been out working all day and I'm looking after the girl, whatever, And so that's the communication, doing things as a team, but it's understanding self. What do I need?
Yeah.
I need to be able to transition so I can do that.
That's such a huge thing, understanding self, because I personally, I sort of never sit back and go, what do I need here? Like to sort this out. I don't. You just think, what do they need to do to accommodate me? Like that's. Well, at least I think that's how I think. I'm not. My wife's constantly like, because she's super introspective. Like she knows how she feels, why she feels. At least she's actively working on that.
Yep.
And I'm probably actively not. And my argument to her is, well, you know yourself a lot better than I do. And I almost feel like that's a cop out, because I'm like, well. Like soon she'll say to me, probably when she hears this, well, now you're going to sort it out. Like now you're going to start to know yourself a little bit better. So
it's true, right? In that moment, but that's still a story that you tell yourself. Yeah. Right? And you can change that story. Yeah. Right? I'm in the process of getting to know myself better. Yeah. At the moment, you know yourself better than me, so can we work on this a different way or whatever? Yeah. You see how it empowers you a little bit differently, right? Whereas you say you know yourself better than me, it just disempowers yourself. Yeah. I never thought about that. I've got some ammo to come home to. But what that is like the disempowering is, right? I'm out of this, nothing to do with me, you've got the higher ground, take some fucking responsibility. And that's about changing the story. But again, it doesn't mean you have to know all the answers and shit, okay, well I know myself no, it's a process, right? Like if you want to learn Spanish tomorrow and you don't know it today, it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. Right? It's like, I'm going to try and speak that every day for a year, check back in. Yep. Yeah. Do you find a lot of guys have trouble getting in their own way? Like, I'll take that as a yes. Getting out of their own way. Out of their own way, sorry. I mean, like it's just such a... So they are getting in their way, yes. Are getting in their way. I didn't say it properly. No, I got you. Absolutely, yeah. Is that a real problem that you have to... eliminate? Like, do you identify it really quickly where you go, you just have a little word with somebody, you go, okay, this guy just can't get out of his own way? Yeah, so I mean, yes, fundamentally, right? Because like whatever, if I talk to you and say like, what's going on now, what's working for you, what isn't, explain in detail, kind of summarize where you're at the moment, how you feel about it, or where do you want to go, what do you want, right? And let's really detail that. Okay, well, why is that not happening?
Yep.
Right? What's the obstacles? What's the challenges? And regardless of what it sounds like, it's you.
Yeah.
It's all you.
Yeah.
If it's money or resources or time, whatever, right? It's always still us. It's my relationship to money and the situation I've got myself into, etc., right? So it's always actually the case.
Yeah.
It just looks different.
Yeah.
Right? And so for some people it will look, in certain things that might be like, oh, I'm telling myself that story or whatever, So and the story thing, it plays out in all sorts of ways. There's the big fear things like, fuck, if I do that thing or if I share or whatever, they're gonna think I'm a fucking pussy or whatever. And then all these ways that are seemingly insignificant, but they're potentially still getting in your way. So here's a common one. You know what? I'm no good with names.
Yeah.
Right? Like, put your hands up if you're listening, if that's you.
Yeah.
And, well, that's a story that you tell yourself that keeps coming true because you keep repeating it. Right?
Yeah.
So you are in your own way.
Yep.
With your ability to learn people's names.
It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's an easy justification for why you've not given the proper effort
and you're not
to know
present
someone's name.
And whatever. But again, the investigation, like you can investigate that stuff, but the result is I'm not good with names, and so you keep telling that story, and so therefore it keeps being the result, and it just keeps feeding itself, right? And it's seemingly insignificant, maybe, but little stories like that can give us a window into like deeper things, right? So one is you keep telling yourself stories that keep getting in your own way, right? Yeah.
That's like I'll think that sometimes I tell myself, oh, I'm just not motivated at the moment. That's the same thing, isn't it? Or you're going, oh, well, clearly not motivated. Clearly not motivated to go and do it. Makes all too much sense.
Yeah. Well, again, so what do you expect? To wake up tomorrow and there's been, a fairy came in overnight and twinkled on your head? Like, motivation isn't something you're born with. You have to, like, the juice is worth the squeeze, right? And so you need to figure out what the juice is to then do the bloody squeezing. That's motivation. And
a lot of discipline too. Discipline's something people lack.
Yeah, but again, I think discipline is something that people get confused about, right?
In what way?
Okay, so if we come back to the example of, getting fit and healthy, right? Everyone knows, like, what's the government message been for years? Like, stop eating so much. It might be stop eating so much sugar. It might be stop eating so much fat. Whatever the message is, everyone knows that stuff. It's not discipline that stops us doing it, right? Because otherwise, it's the stories, right? It's the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the world around us, and do I deserve this, and my worthiness, and all those things that create the discipline. So, for example, a lot of people, I procrastinate a lot. Right? I procrastinate a lot. It's not really the procrastination and the thing that you do that's the problem. It's the story that you have around why you're procrastinating and what you're procrastinating from, right? And so if you have to do some task that you keep putting off, you don't give a shit about that task.
Yeah.
So you don't have discipline because you're not, it's not important enough.
Yeah.
You're not bought into it, right? Or, there's a little head fuck for you.
I need more of these in the last hour. God.
Or, no, of course I do, right? So like I want to succeed or something, but if I do that thing, it will lead to me, getting that next contract or something, right? Yeah. So sometimes it's the fear of success, right? So i.e. if I succeed, I'm putting myself out there, right? I'm stepping up, and all of a sudden I'm available or possible to be cut down, right? So if you think about the tall poppy syndrome, you put yourself out, you're going to get cut down. Yeah. So that's often the fear of success thing in a simple bubble, I suppose, right?
It's like you pull back the layers, isn't it? All the time. I saw I don't know if you've seen the Tony Robbins. I know you got to shoot soon. I got Tony Robbins doco. Yes. And you've seen the one where he talks to a girl and she like talks about father issues, but he just keeps digging, and it just goes somewhere else. Do you get that a lot in what you do? Like a guy on the surface will say, oh, I'm just having trouble with me lack of wanting to do exercise. Before you know it, you're talking about, how his father maybe wasn't present and he doesn't deserve it. It gets deep.
Yeah. It gets, again, like for most part, there's always something else, right? Yeah. The problem isn't the problem, kind of like I said before, right? If you're arguing about the dishwasher, it's not the dishwasher. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. Like, I just can't seem to exercise. Okay, cool. So we could work on the strategy, like set your alarm, get your shoes ready by the bed, like all these things. But if you don't feel like you deserve to be fit and healthy and strong and lovable, you're going to sabotage the things that will get you there. Yeah. Right? So again, that's why we just have to get into that mode of digging, right? Asking more effective questions. and be willing to curiously investigate as the observer versus the dude who's still so in his shit, he sees the thing and he judges himself for it and goes in the other direction. You know, like, fuck, I did that thing again. Oh, I'm such an idiot. And versus, oh, fuck, I did that thing again.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Like, why do I do that? I wonder, you know, and you start to get curious and you investigate. Now, you might not have the answers. Talk to someone who might, right? Or talk to someone. Hey, you know what? I keep doing this thing. I don't know what it's about. I want to try and figure it out. I don't expect you to have the answers, but I know, because I heard this dude Mike talk about it on a podcast, that if I talk about something, I might hear it differently, or you might bounce it back to me differently. Right? What are you hearing? You know? Because often when we, you know, like, again, the whole idea of like, are you okay or something? You say to someone or your mate who doesn't talk about anything, are you okay? He says, yep. Yeah. Right?
Well, that's a common thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. Or if someone opens up, it's like, oh, fuck, what do I say? I got to try and fix this problem. When you're in fixing mode, that's all you do, right?
Yeah.
So we get to create safety by saying, dude, I want to talk about this thing, having some trouble with the missus. I'm actually quite terrified to talk about it. Can you make it safe for me and support me? Now, that's a pretty simple sentence to say.
Yep.
And if someone's like, yeah, dude, then safety. Yeah. Or no, dude, cool, don't talk about it with him.
Yeah.
Right? But you can set it up, dude, I don't need you to fix this. I just want to bounce it. If I get it out of my head, because by the way, if you get things out of your head, it becomes easy to understand them.
Yeah.
Write it down, talk to someone about it, and you can start to like, what are you hearing? Or what am I not seeing, right? And so they don't need to fix something, but they can bounce things back to you, and we can start to see things differently.
Do you think sometimes?
But again, that's the curiosity versus the judgment. The judgment's a spin in the other direction. Yeah.
Do you think sometimes people shy away from speaking to someone because they think, oh, either if they shut me down as well, then I'm, you know, because like not everyone's there to say, oh, no, talk to me, let's talk. Some people will be like, oh man, don't ask me, I wouldn't know. And then you're almost like, oh shit, well, maybe I shouldn't even. I'm not expecting them anything. And conversely, they might give you poor advice.
Yes. Yeah. So
it's almost like doing more damage.
Exactly. So one, you know, like the idea of being vulnerable and talking and sharing your stuff, you know, so vulnerability is one of the popular words. So Brene Brown, she's the kind of queen of that one, the one I said before. So one of the keys there is not everyone gets access to that.
Yeah.
Like being vulnerable isn't just about spilling your shit to the world. It's about picking your audience. Right?
Yeah.
So if I have mates that I know are completely fucking immature, they don't get access to my real stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's kind of finding, you know, the people. And you might find, you know what, I don't even know that dude that well, but he seems solid and trustworthy and he seems really insightful.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll see if he was willing to have a conversation, but just to listen to me. And maybe he can then bounce some stuff back. Right? But again, as men, if we want, you know, we want to solve things. So if we're hearing for the problem.
Yep.
There it is, problem. Okay, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
So if we're trying to figure something out, it might pay to first of all understand, am I needing a solution here right now, or do I just need to understand it a bit?
Yeah.
Right? And so understanding it is going to be your first step. Then potentially a solution can come in, right? This is a bit vague right now because obviously it's kind of context dependent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But also a responsibility as the listener. So
there's the two responsibilities, right? So if you think about in a one-on-one interaction or a relationship, right? We've got 100%. So I've got my hands up like I'm showing you the size of the fish I caught the other day.
Yep.
I'm responsible 100% for my 50%. And you're 100% responsible for your 50%. I'm not responsible for anything in your side. So there's those two sides to the conversation, right? So I can't control the meaning you give to what I say, but I can request in my 50% how I'm heard. What are you hearing me say? Right? That's inside I can do that. That's my communication, right? So it's breaking down in this interaction what's within my control and what isn't. Right? And often where we have trouble or anxiety or anger is I'm trying to control the shit that isn't mine. And I can't, right? So there's the listening and the talking, but that's almost too simple. That's why I kind of went to the other point. So if I'm going to try and talk about something and figure it out, there's my responsibility, right? This is my stuff. And then if you're like, yeah, man, I'm happy to listen. Okay, cool. What's my responsibility as a listener, right? Do I just listen? Well, it's probably not to solve. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is. You know what? Maybe I can ask them a question. How do you want me to listen? Do you want me to try and come up with any solutions for you? Right? And so you're asking, how can I listen now, essentially? Whereas what we generally do is we don't ask those things and we leave it to chance.
Yep.
And it's just simple. And so now, if my missus is wanting to unload or something, it's like, if I'm in mode, especially if I'm in doing mode, I'm like, well, I'm going to come in here and smash things with a hammer. So hold on. Hey, okay, yep, absolutely, I can listen. How do you want me to listen?
Yep.
Do you want me to solve it? Solutions? I just want you to listen. Great. Like all of a sudden, now I know what's on my 50%.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's perfect, man. Well, geez, Mike, you've opened you opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. It's incredible. I think what you're doing is it's only going to get huge. It has to. It's not really going to go back from how it is now. You think of guys like, you think guys like keeping everything closed, everything locked up, and now it's only just becoming more and more open. You've probably opened the floodgates to a lot of people, which is awesome. Because it's only going to make better people. So,
no, that's the aim, and I think the thing is like, I'm not some freak of a dude or anything, like I'm a normal dude. I just tended to have a curiosity about myself and the world around me, and opened my eyes to a few other ways of communicating and being and navigating things. And just because maybe all the people around me or all of my mates have done and maybe still do certain things a certain way for a long time doesn't mean you have to. I think fundamentally, if you want to have like richer, deeper relationships and connections and a life that brings you joy and meaning, it's your responsibility. No one's going to give that shit to you. No one's going to come and save you and rescue you. And it's all available. But it will take different behaviors, right? Different results require different behaviors. And so explore it. Yeah. Right? Explore it. And if you think you're going to be judged for it, then one, if those people actually judge you for it, they're showing you that they're a dick. Yeah. Because they're judging you for wanting something better for yourself. Yeah. Exactly. Right. So that why would you continue to hang around those people and allow them to keep you small? Or two, that's your judgment of yourself. And so learn to get past that by, you know what? It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a human and have some flaws, and some people might judge me, and that's okay. Yeah. Everyone's got flaws, because guess what? We've all got shit. Yeah. Some bigger than others. So how can people get in touch with you for everything you do? Like, have you got a website or? Yeah, so you can find me online, mikecampbell.com.au, or Mike Campbell MC on IG. That's probably the easiest way. Get into my DMs. I'm happy to answer questions and help out and support. And if you're in and around Sydney, get down to Manifest. We've got an event coming up on November the 16th and 17th. It's going to be dope. Awesome, man. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me, John. Right, take care. Cheers.